Hi everyone, I'm Law of the West, and in this video I'm going to be talking about the Mirai Fury. And the really interesting thing about this snub fighter is that it manages to redefine how ships can be used. And up until now it almost felt like CIG had purposely built their vessels to prevent them from being used as pocket carriers. But of course, that never stopped the community from trying anyway. But the Fury seems to have finally given the people what they want by allowing a lot of smaller ships to be able to carry at least one or even more of them. And it can let players turn certain ships like the Hercules and the Caterpillar into a mini Liberator. And so far, the smallest ship that can haul a Fury around is the Nomad, which is insane if you really think about it, because this snub fighter is tiny enough to be carried around by a small starter ship. Some medium-sized ships can also transport it, like the Valkyrie, the Freelancers, the MSR, the Cutlass Black, the Cutty Blue, and the Cutlass Red. And also a number of larger ships can carry a Fury, like the Starfarer, Hammerhead, Reclaimer, 600i, Carrack, Constellation Series, Corsair, Liberator, Kraken, Privateer, Galaxy, Hercules, and the 890 Jump. I'm currently working on making an If It Sits It Fits video for the Fury, and let me tell you, it can be carried by a lot of things, and they can carry a lot of them. The Fury is manufactured by Mirai, which is a sub-label under MISC that specializes in building performance ships. And it seems that their definition of what fits under the performance umbrella seems like it's going to be a bit more broad spectrum than just having a focus on building racing ships. And that's become abundantly clear after they unveiled their new straight-to-flyable vessels during the 2953 Invictus Fleet Week. And those two ships are the Fury and the Fury MX. Both of the Fury variants have the same basic components loadouts. They have one size 1 shield, one size 1 power plant, and two size 1 coolers. They also have 4 highly articulated thrusters that are the same type as you'd find on the Car-to-Wall or the Santo Kiai. And this Xi'an-inspired engine design gives the Fury superior strafing and lateral acceleration, and allows it to hover in place just as easily as it can fly in any other direction. For weapons, the default Fury has 4 size 2 missiles and 4 size 2 weapon hardpoints, while the Fury MX has no guns, but it's got 11 size 2 missiles and 8 size 1s. And the Fury MX also has a unique blast shield that can be deployed to cover the windscreen of the flight deck. And one of my biggest pet peeves when it comes to the physical characteristics of a ship is anything that obscures the pilot's view. And although this feature fits right into that category, it also adds so much to the Fury's immersion factor that I actually enjoy flying around with the blast screen up. And the view from the Fury's flight deck is so good that I felt like I was cruising around in a futuristic version of a Bell 47 helicopter. And the choice is always going to be up to you if you want to turn the blast shield on or off. There are a couple of downsides to this ship. The first of which is that it has a paper-thin hull that makes the Defender's chassis look like a tank in comparison. On more than one occasion, I've accidentally barely touched some piece of collision and had a Fury instantly detonate on me like it was some kind of futuristic Pinto. Another thing about this ship is that it has a micro-sized fuel tank, which makes it even more dependent on a mother craft and ensures that you don't ever stray too far away from it. But these are the trade-offs that it's been given to offset all the positive things about the Fury. First off, it's incredibly maneuverable and one of the most fun experiences that I've had while flying a ship within an atmosphere. And honestly, I never thought I'd find something that ever rivaled joyriding around in my Aero, but the Fury really gives it a run for its money. Another thing is that the Fury was meant to rely on swarm tactics to overwhelm and destroy a superior foe. And to counterbalance that, they've designed the ship to be extremely vulnerable to attacks once its shields are down. But the Fury is going to have applications that goes well beyond simply using it to swarm enemies with. I imagine being able to use it as a small scout that you'd fly through the remains of a derelict that's on the same scale as something like Everest Harbor or any of the other orbital space stations. Only this one would have a gaping hole in it that's big enough for a small craft to be piloted through. And once you're inside, you could use the Fury to travel through its interior and look for more points of interest for the rest of your team to further explore. Nor could be used to traverse through a large open cave that would allow you to get into places that would otherwise be inaccessible to a ground vehicle or even most of the other small ships. There's even plans to start making a series of large bunkers that have an extensive network of underground tunnels that are going to be more than big enough for this ship to be able to fly around in. There's also a number of underground elements coming that lie deep under the surface of ArcCorp that all seem to be big enough to accommodate for a small craft like the Fury. I'd love to see that idea expanded upon and have them create a series of large tunnels that are used for drainage, running electricity conduits through, and open sewage systems that could be explored by using a small craft like the Fury. The Fury's small frame and quick maneuvering ability is going to make it the perfect choice for going on short-range reconnaissance missions through a densely packed asteroid field. I've also started to look at the Fury as not just a snub fighter, but it also is one of the best pieces of EVA gear that you could possibly own. and it's a great alternative to having an escape pod for you Drake owners. Well, that's all well and good, but what about the Fury MX? I see the MX as being an incredibly useful asset when it comes to defending a base. I plan on using it as a mobile missile turret that can be easily moved around and provide air-to-ground support against heavy threats like a Nova tank or a group of storms. And this is going to make it a great companion craft you could use to protect your more stationary defenses like a Ballista or a Centurion. So while those vehicles are busy watching the sky, the Fury MX could be watching their backs and making sure that no ground-based threats end up sneaking up on them. The MX is agile enough to be able to move from one position to another and even use certain types of cover as a defensive wall to avoid incoming fire. And since the new salvage mechanic has been implemented, you can now continue resupplying the MX with missiles to keep it stocked for as long as your spare ordnance supply holds out. There's one other thing about the Fury, and it's that right from the start people instantly started making comparisons between it and other sci-fi ships like a TIE Interceptor or Jill Valentine's ship from Cowboy Bebop. And my all-time favorite was when someone said that it reminded them of one of the submersibles from the movie The Abyss. But all of that just strengthened my appreciation for the Fury, and I hope that they continue taking inspiration from existing franchises like Star Wars, Star Trek, The Expanse, Dune, Babylon 5, Aliens, Farscape, Warhammer, and even certain anime, and to keep using that as a foundation to build new ships from. Because that's what I want more of. Ships that remind me of my favorite sci-fi genres, which in turn feeds that aspect of my imagination. And the more of that I get, the stronger my connection to the Star Citizen universe ends up being. I'm just waiting for him to put some sandworms into the game, then give me a still suit and an ornithopter, and I'll be good to go. Well, that's going to be it for this first look at the Fury and the Fury MX. I've been your host, Law of the West. Thanks for watching, and take care.